Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name is Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Is that like a little more professional? That sounds professional. It does, doesn't it?
It does.
I have like 2 customers that call me Michael. I never asked them to, but they do. I don't know why. They're not my parents, so that's interesting. But I really don't like going by Michael. People always, I used to be like, I don't care, whatever, but I genuinely don't like Michael. I don't know.
Well, it's because you're used to going by Mike.
Yeah, I'm a Mike. And if we ever get any drinks at Starbucks or anything, it's never Mike. It's got to be Biff.
Always Biff.
Yeah, we've told you that before. But for our new listeners, I'm if you ever see me at Starbucks, you hear somebody named Biff that has a drink, it's a good chance it's me. And that is, in fact, from Back to the Future. So,
and I know I've mentioned it before, but I hate it when I go up and in front of the whole restaurant, they're like, who's your order for? I was like, Biff.
And they're like, well, oh yeah, Biff right here. And they always remember. So it's good.
I always feel like such a tool.
Yeah, well, you are a tool. Just kidding. You're not. You're great. So we're a married couple here. And every single Sunday, Allison brings us a new story. She tells me I've never heard it before. And I have live reactions, questions, things of that nature. I have lots of hms and ahs and all that sort of thing. But usually it's a terrible, terrible story. So buckle yourselves in.
Absolutely. We're always drinking our coffee. If you see me petting something off screen, we've got our little Shorky, our little 6-pound angel baby, who lives in my heart, who I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, she's a little darling.
And if I could take her everywhere I ever went, I'd be a happy person.
Yeah, she's a good kid. You love her. She's like one of our kids. We have 2 kids and all that. And we like to get a little banter going before the horrible, horrible story we're about to say, just because it feels like you guys are friends. Like we're gathering around the coffee table here, and not to push the coffee thing too much, but I mean,
we are the Crime and Coffee Couple.
Yeah,
and if you don't like banter, you're in luck because there's a skip the banter button.
Yeah,
and you can go straight to the meat and potatoes of the case.
Right. On YouTube, you can click on it. I think on Apple, you can click on it. Spotify, I don't think that's clickable, but at least it would tell you where it is. So welcome to the show. All the new listeners, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome.
Yes. While you're there, go ahead and leave a comment and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. It helps us, how that goes. But how's your week going this week?
A little hectic, I'd say. Yeah, I've been running a little wild this morning.
Today's just crazy, folks. Crazy.
Having a hard time catching my breath because
Well, so real quick, you did say you're trying to catch your breath, and I noticed this morning you were coming out into the family room, and I just heard, and I was like, I don't usually hear that. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Is everything all right? And you're just like, it's just a lot to do, a lot going on, and there is a lot going on.
Yeah, so we're getting ready. Mike's parents are flying in today, and if you're a bonus listener, you heard us touch on this, but I always just like the house to be fully ready for our guests. I want them to be comfortable. They're staying with us for 3 weeks, so I'm just trying to get my ducks in a row so that I'm preprepared.
They're aged. My dad's like 83. Mom's like 78-ish, I think, right around there. So dad, he had fallen down the stairs a few years ago, or what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago when they first moved into their new house. It was their first night in the house, and it was dark, and it was in an unfamiliar place. They had no night lights on whatsoever, and he got up to go to the bathroom, took a wrong turn, and fell down the staircase.
Yeah, they're in a 55 and over community, and this stupid house has just one set of stairs going to the basement, and it's like wide open, which I kicked myself. I should have put something in front of it. Now there's a big dresser in front of it, so nobody goes downstairs.
Well, we weren't there. We had yet to see that house.
Yeah, they live in Illinois. But yeah, he fell down the stairs and had a brain bleed months later. Didn't show up at the ER, but months later had a brain bleed, and they had to drill in holes and all that stuff. So poor guy. I mean, he's doing great, I'd say.
Yeah, your dad is a trooper. He never complains. He's happy with anything.
Yeah.
He's just an all-around very positive guy. Like, if he got 2 hours of horrible sleep, he'd be like, yeah, I feel great.
Right. Ready to go. Yeah. And he's always like, every food you put in front of him, he's like, yeah, it's good. Something different.
Like, I eat anything. I could sleep anywhere. And so we made sure we got him situated where he and Mike's mom do not share a bed because he snores. So we got him situated in our son's bedroom. My mother-in-law's in the back bedroom. Our son's upstairs. It's chaos here.
We got to get him a book. We know, so my dad's he likes to move and just do things all the time. He always likes to go for walks. And if he's sitting there, he's sleeping basically on the couch. And he'll be I don't know if I've ever shared it before, but if you're watching YouTube, it's basically just mouth open, wide.
Head back, mouth open.
And mouth wide open. He looks like he's dead. If this week, watch, or maybe, at some point I'll put it on Instagram.
So we want to get him a book because he gets restless, and this way he could sit out by the pool and read and keep himself occupied.
Yeah, God bless the little guy. And he always loves little crime books. So something about the mafia. He's not Italian. Czechoslovakian, if anything. And he, for some reason, he just loves reading about the mob. So
either
really,
the mob or baseball are his two go-tos.
So we're like, what is he going to watch? Because we canceled cable, and we're like, I think I'll just put on some old baseball videos from YouTube.
My gosh, it's going to be interesting around here.
Like, he'll know that they're old. I'm not going to be like, hey, Dad, it's a new game or whatever. I'm not that cruel, but
that would be like very gaslighting. He'd be talking to somebody. He's like, did you see that game? They'd be like, that's from 15 years ago.
Yeah, he's talking about guys like Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco and Dick Allen back in the day. Yeah, so we're just going to, I don't know. We'll see. There should be some college basketball. I don't know. We'll see what we show him.
Keep the little guy entertained.
Yeah. God bless him.
So anything else you want to add, or are you ready to dive into this case?
I think I'm ready to dive in.
All right, well, let's do this. We're going to get into this cup of coffee. This is a listener suggestion from Hunter. This is the rampage of Laurie Dann and the murder of Nick Corwin.
Laurie Dann sounds familiar.
So on the morning of Friday, May 20th, 1988, as we're going as far back as that, the quiet and virtually crime-free suburb of Winnetka, Illinois, was doing what it always did. Parents were dropping their children off at school before they were heading off to work themselves. Coffee was brewing, lawns were being tended to, in a place where neighbors knew each other, and violent crime really seemed like something that happened somewhere else and to someone else. However, the illusion of safety shattered when a 30-year-old woman from a wealthy family decided to go on a murderous spree, shooting 6 students at the Hubbard Woods Elementary School.
Wow, that is crazy. I'm sorry to cut you off, but if there's ever a school shooting, it's usually a boy or a man or something like that. Yes. A woman from an affluent family. That's crazy.
Very, very out of the, I can't really say out of the blue because there were definitely warning signs. So she showed up at Hubbard Woods Elementary School. She killed 8-year-old Nicholas Corwin, and she critically injured 5 others. Today's case isn't just about a shooting, but it highlights the signs that were missed and a system that failed to act. There were a trail of red flags that, in hindsight, really seemed impossible to ignore. So this is a story of Laurie Dann and the day that residents of Winnetka's illusion of safety was forever changed. Laurie Dann was born Laurie Wasserman on October 18, 1957, as a second child to parents 27-year-old Edith Joy and 28-year-old Norman Wasserman. At the time of her birth, her brother was 5 years old and they lived in Pill Hill. This is a neighborhood in Calumet Heights, and it's on the south side of Chicago. I've actually never heard of Pill Hill.
Me neither.
So when she was 7 years old, they moved to a large brick tri-level home in Highland Park on the North Shore. So during her time in elementary school and middle school, her classmates remember Laurie as very quiet and unremarkable. They indicated that she really didn't seem to have a whole lot of close friends, but she was an amazing speller. I thought that was a little bit of an odd add in there.
Maybe they're really searching for something good. They're like, okay, no, that's nothing good. Okay, well, she spelled pretty well.
Yeah. So one classmate described her as very, very quiet, the type of person who you would say good morning to and you would just be met with silence.
Oh, God. That is one of your pet peeves.
So freaking weird.
It's like you're a terrible piece of shit if you don't say good morning. At least something. Okay, I know that you shouldn't have to say something just because somebody spoke to you, but it's just common decency. If somebody says good morning, just good morning, just a quick one. That's all we ask. Just we're all humans in this together. Let's try to make it nice.
And I understand if she's a child and she's not maybe saying good morning, but there are times I'd be walking through the hallway at work. I work in a hospital. And I would say good morning to an adult and nothing. And I'm like, in my head, I'd be like, you're a effing weirdo.
And if that happens to me, I start being like, good morning. Hey, did you hear me? And then they just keep, gross.
Yeah, I don't want to make things awkward, so I don't do that. So when Laurie was in elementary school, her parents paid to have her ears pinned back, and then they later paid to have a nose job. And I think that this was brought up in my research because it kind of highlighted that maybe her parents were more focused on how she looked on the outside versus what was going on the inside.
I didn't know you could pin kids' ears back.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a dog thing.
No. People, I was watching, I think it was the Valley Persian style. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the guys said he had his ears pinned back.
Do they put a pin into your head and your ears?
I don't know if it's stitched back. I didn't look into the procedure.
Okay.
So while she attended Red Oak Junior High, Laurie maintained good grades, and as she entered high school, she attended 2 different schools, eventually transferring to New Trier East High School in the affluent area of Winnetka. And here, the current mean household income is about $460,000, and the median home value is often listed well above $1 million. And
Wow.
I, of course, hopped on over to Zillow, and we did live in the suburbs of Chicago. I've actually never been to Winnetka, but I would pop over to Zillow, and I am talking, you would get a 2,000 square foot kind of rundown home for almost $1 million. And then the nicer ones are upwards of $6+ million.
You know, my dad's friend, Uncle Jim, lived in Winnetka.
Really?
Been there several times.
So not only is Winnetka consistently ranked among the wealthiest suburbs in the United States, but it might be most notably known for the town where the Home Alone house is. This is at 671 Lincoln Avenue. However, what a lot of people might not know is that rather than filming inside this iconic home that was the face of Home Alone, much of the movie was actually filmed on a constructed set inside the gym at New Trier Township High School after it closed due to declining enrollment in 1981. I read that the scene where the neighbor's basement is flooded, because the wet bandits had come through and Kevin's running through that scene was filmed in the old high school's pool.
Huh.
And what is the name of the director? John Hughes. Thank you. I
did nothing. I just looked at you.
So John Hughes grew up in that area, which is why all the films he is known to do take place in the Chicago suburbs.
Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
In my mind, John Hughes is just an absolute legend. I utterly adore all of his movies. One of my favorites is The Breakfast Club. And of course, you can't forget Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
No.
My high school was actually in that movie.
Oh,
just
yeah.
A little fun
not
fact
your high
there.
school. The band was.
Well, the band was.
Yes.
Lockport Township High School. So the home at 671 Lincoln Avenue was used for the iconic exterior as well as the staircase and the front entry of the home. Otherwise, all the other scenes were filmed at this set at the high school. And I will tell you, the people who bought this home now, my cousin went up there for Christmas and she did a Snapchat. If you could see the throngs of cars lined up down the street and the crowds of people that are gathered out in front of this house just to get a look at it. And maybe it was more so because it was Christmas time. I don't know if it's like that all year long. The house did install a gate for like a shield, but regardless, you look out your front window and there are crowds of people standing outside your house.
Well, what I would do is just set up a bunch of mannequins and make it look like we're having a party. That's all.
Kind of like in Home Alone?
Yes, exactly.
So this 9,126 square foot, 5-bedroom, 6-bathroom home, it actually recently sold for $5.5 million in January of 2025 after undergoing a major overhaul. Now, again, keep in mind that what you see in the movie isn't necessarily in the home, but it looks virtually unrecognizable. It's very modern. It's very white and gray, muted colors, where, of course, in the movie, it's a lot of those rich Christmassy colors. So, of course, Home Alone was made in 1990, and rather than the spooky basement where Kevin wandered down to do his laundry, now it is this completely renovated basketball court. There's a movie theater, a wet bar, and a fully equipped gym. Oh, to be rich. So Laurie's father, this is Norman Wasserman, he had built a successful accounting business, and he loved to spend his free time traveling, playing tennis, jogging, and taking care of his family. He was a provider. Although he and Edith never hesitated to shower their only daughter with gifts and things, they didn't really display much affection towards one another, and Laurie really struggled to voice her love of her parents. And there was a talk about a speech she had done, and she couldn't even bring herself during the speech to tell her parents that she loved them. So during her time in high school, Laurie had very little girlfriends that carried on past school, but she was very popular with the boys. She attended junior prom at the Orrington Hotel in Evanston, and she and her date continued the relationship for about a month. Her female classmates could recognize that Laurie was the type of girl that always had to have a boy by her side. You would see her in the hallway, she'd be draped over some boy. If it wasn't one, it was another. So in the fall of 1976, Laurie started college at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. She had an education major at that point. And 1 year later, she transferred over to the University of Arizona in Tucson as a liberal arts major, where she pledged the Alpha Delta Pi sorority. And during this time, she was a C student, and her former sorority sister recalls that really, rather than focusing on school, she wanted to focus on men and getting dates. So it wasn't uncommon that she would schedule several dates with various men over the course of one evening.
Wow.
And she would cancel one at the very last minute in order to keep the date with a guy that she really had her eye on. So despite being involved in a sorority, her Alpha Delta Pi sisters indicated that she wasn't particularly social, which is interesting because most people join sororities for that sisterhood. And they said that she wasn't really fun to be around because she was a complainer. So during that summer, Laurie took a home economics course at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And when she returned to Tucson in the fall of 1977, she changed her major to home economics. So this is the third time she's changing her major, and this is the third college she's gone to. So you can basically deduce that she doesn't really have a clear vision of what she wants in her life, which sometimes is understandable when you're young and you're choosing a career that you're going to essentially work in for the rest of your life. It's a big decision. So an ex-boyfriend she was dating at the time indicated that their relationship ended as he was preparing to enter medical school. And this boy will come back around when he's now a man working as a doctor, but this will be later in the case. So he felt that although she was possessive, she was jealous of other women, he never noticed anything overtly odd about her. So during the summer of 1980, Laurie left Arizona and returned home to the North Shore of Illinois, where she quickly started a new romance with Russell Dann. And if you think of that last name, I started this case with her as Laurie Dann.
They're going to get married.
They're going to get married. So this is a man that she met at a bar, and Russell grew up in Highland Park, and he was moving up the ranks within his family's business. This is Dann Brothers Insurance Company in Northbrook. Russell was described as an all-American boy who was outgoing. He was always surrounded by friends, well-liked, an outstanding skier, and a champion tennis player.
Sounds like a rich kid.
Sounds like complete opposite of Laurie, though, because she's more antisocial towards the girls, whereas Russell is surrounded by, sounds like he's a very affable guy that's surrounded by a lot of people.
And sometimes, if you have opposites attract and all that kind of thing.
So 9 months after they met, Laurie and Russell were engaged at the Wasserman's Boca Raton, Florida home. The couple were married in a small ceremony in Northbrook on September 11th, 1982, when Russell was 26 and Laurie was just 1 month shy of turning 25. So by this point, she had enrolled in and withdrawn from 6 courses now at Northwestern University. She was in their continuing education program.
What a waste of money.
Total. That's what I kept thinking. I mean, it's good that her family has money, but my goodness, it's like just open a window and throw the cash out because that's what's happening here.
Yep.
So because Russell was earning a 6-figure salary, and we're talking this is back in the early 1980s, and this was only a fraction of his true net worth because his family had built this business. And at that point in time, Laurie didn't technically need to work. They didn't need her income. However, when applying for jobs, she was deceptive, though. She wrote that she had graduated from the University of Arizona. That wasn't true. She had gone there, but she had withdrawn.
Well, at that point, it's probably hard to prove it. I mean, they probably want your transcripts. But.
Sure, they would. And she also said that she worked at Dann Brothers Insurance, even though she hadn't. So while they were dating and newly married, Russell did notice some things in Laurie, and he initially just chalked them up to her superstitions. So they would be stopped at a stoplight, and Laurie would often open the door and tap her foot on the pavement.
Okay.
And then she would tiptoe around the carpet in her parents' Boca Raton home, and she refused to close all of the cabinets in the kitchen. So on top of this accounting business that her father had, he also was a part owner of a clothing store. And although he provided his daughter with a plethora of new clothing, rather than wearing these items, they always ended up in a giant messy heap on her closet floor. And instead, she was said to dress very sloppily. She slept a lot of the day. And Russell started to find that his wife she seemed very dependent and helpless in life. So Russell tried very hard to make things work, and he promised that he would spend whatever it took to really make Laurie better, and she began seeing a psychiatrist. However, by March of 1984, Laurie refused help, and in a letter from her psychiatrist on March 12th, he pleaded with her to continue this psychotherapy. So it seems like she starts things, but she doesn't complete them. He also warned Laurie that she couldn't just solely rely on her prescribed medications to get better. She needed to continue the therapy. So in 1985, Laurie and Russell purchased a 5-bedroom home in Highland Park, but they separated later that same year. Russell's father, Armand, gave Norman Wasserman a deadline for them to come to a friendly divorce agreement. And one day before the deadline, in January of 1986, Laurie filed for dissolution of marriage after she confided in her lawyer that she had hoped to drag this divorce on for at least the next 2 to 3 years. And according to a friend, Laurie once told Russell, "If I can't have you, nobody can." She also said that her marriage was the only thing she had and the only thing she wanted.
That's pretty sad.
It is sad, and you can never put such stock in another human being.
Because you have no control over who they are, they can switch on a dime and then all of a sudden you're screwed. Or just you got to love yourself and be confident in yourself before anybody else can love you.
And that's really what it comes down to, is you can't put your confidence in having another person bolster you up. You have to have that from within. So during a hearing in June of 1986, although her lawyer alleged that Russell had beaten his wife during their marriage as well as their separation, there was absolutely no evidence to support that this was true.
So this chick's crazy.
So in the meantime, Laurie's ex-boyfriend from Tucson, who was now working as a doctor, he began receiving harassing phone calls.
The guy you told us about before.
Yeah, and obviously this seemed to come out of the blue because years had passed at this point in time. So on May 10th, 1986, Laurie entered the Marksman gun shop in Glenview, and the clerk recalls her being actively flirtatious. And it was here that she purchased a .357 Smith & Wesson, easy for me to say, Magnum. And this was something that she told her parents that she needed for her own protection. So Russell somehow learned that she is now armed, and he was very uncomfortable by this idea, and he notified the police. But when Mr. and Mrs. Wasserman were contacted by the Glencoe police, they assured them that the gun would be kept in a safe space in a deposit box. So in August, Laurie met John Childs. This was a man that lived only 2 houses away. She was at Glencoe Beach when they bumped into each other. And during their 1-month relationship, he noticed that she would open doors and pick up silverware using her sleeves, and his mom noticed how often that she was washing her hands. She also didn't like to be touched, and she said she was fearful of her estranged husband. But if you talk to Russell, it's the opposite. He feels very fearful of her.
Yeah.
So moving forward to September 30th, 1986, while Russell Dann was asleep in his apartment, someone snuck inside and stabbed him in the chest with an ice pick.
Holy crap.
His lung was punctured, and in one of the sources I read, his heart was nearly missed.
Jeez.
This man could have died.
Yeah.
Although he told the police that he had not seen the intruder, a hardware store employee recalled that Laurie purchased an ice pick, and a receipt for said ice pick was found in her house. However, Russell indicated that after he failed a lie detector test and Laurie passed one, no charges were filed.
That's how stupid. I hate lie detector tests.
It's ridiculous. And also there's hard proof that she walked into a hardware store and purchased this ice pick.
Yeah.
And then her ex-husband is stabbed, nearly puncturing his heart.
Did she have a good story as to why she bought an ice pick? It's the 80s. There's no longer ice chests or anything.
I honestly think it was kind of just very quickly dropped.
Crazy.
So when Russell spoke with the media, he claimed that Laurie had actually admitted to being the person to stab him. Shortly thereafter, his family and friends began receiving harassing late-night phone calls that were highly suspected that Laurie was the person involved. The calls began as a hang-up, and despite the fact that they were made to a woman that Russell had been dating at the time, they were eventually traced to the Wasserman's home in Glencoe, but charges were later dropped after Laurie was arrested by the Highland Park police. This happened in November of 1986. So the police report stated victim, meaning Russell's girlfriend, believed suspect is 1096. This is police code for a mental patient. Lake County prosecutors cited lack of concrete evidence. The phone calls were traced to her parents' house. I don't know how that's a lack of concrete evidence.
Well, is it illegal to make phone calls?
I don't know what kind of threats she was making during these particular phone calls.
Even threats, I don't know if that's illegal.
I mean, if you say, I'm going to kill you, you can't just say that.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's okay. I just don't know if it's illegal.
So in January of 1987, as Russell and Laurie proceeded towards divorce, they intended to split the money from the sale of their home. This was valued at about $250,000. So today it would be worth about $713,000. Russell would also pay Laurie $1,250 a month, which for 36 months, I should say. And in 2026, this equates to a little over $3,500. So it was about this time that the harassing phone calls started to slow down. But then by March of that year, Russell's friends sought help from the Lake County State's attorney, indicating that Laurie had called them 2 to 3 times a night, 5 nights in a row.
Man.
The divorce was finally finalized on April 27th, 1987, but in May, she accused Russell of sexually assaulting her. And after hair samples were taken from Russell, prosecutors decided that they didn't have enough to pursue the case. So that summer, Laurie, who was nearly 30 years old, she sublet an apartment from a student at the Kellogg Living Learning Center at Northwestern in Evanston. So she's surrounding herself with people that are so much younger than her. And pretty soon, she became the suspect of thefts within the building. She was also accused of several disruptive incidents, one that included meat being put under the cushions of the chairs and couches in the lounges, which, of course, as the meat starts to rot, the lounge is going to reek.
Yeah.
So right around this time, Laurie, who always wanted to have a child, she began advertising her babysitting services, which is so scary to think that someone that's not mentally well is wanting to watch children.
Yeah.
So she was posting handwritten notices on bulletin boards around town. And although some families that she ended up working for along the North Shore in 1987 said that she had been near perfect, others had an entirely different experience with her. They accused her of being a thief, a vandalizer, and a liar. However, each family had admitted, though, that she was technically good with their children. And I think it was because she just had this childlike quality about her so that she was able to connect with the children, but be very uneasy with the adults, even though she herself was an adult. So while spending time in these homes, Laurie was accused of putting used dirty dishes back into drawers and cabinets without washing them, stealing food, and defacing property.
So she doesn't get a whole lot of referrals from these jobs, I guess.
She didn't, no. And, she's stealing food even though she comes from a wealthy background, and she does not need to steal food. They have plenty of money in their account. Her father was very happy to continue to pay for her needs.
She's doing it for fun or whatever. She's just doing it.
I don't know why, because she's just acting out. She also dressed very sloppily. She was said to have a very strong body odor.
Oh, gosh, that's probably the worst thing you could say. Oof. Disgusting.
So after Northwestern University made attempts to evict Laurie because everyone knew that she was causing a ruckus around.
And I mean, really, at this point, poor thing. Like, she's
desperate for help.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, like, if it was this year, like, she would get some help, probably.
She needs help.
Yeah.
Her parents are stepping in to help her in certain ways, but not mentally.
Like surface level.
Surface level.
And it's like, that's just not enough. Maybe they didn't know that in the 80s.
I don't know. Surely not. Things have come a long way where people aren't ashamed to say that they're seeing a therapist because we shouldn't need to. I think everyone should be seeing a therapist, to be quite honest with you.
Sure.
So, here's an example. Northwestern University is evicting her because she's doing things like stealing from people and putting meat under the couches. So her dad steps in to help to move her out. This happened on September 7th. And, but it's like, so he's coming in to help her move out, but not getting her the treatment she needs. So her apartment was later inspected, and officials found urine-stained floors and rancid meat on the counters. So it sounds like she was just like peeing in the middle of her apartment.
Yeah.
She was found then 5 blocks away, sleeping in her car, something that the investigator claimed wasn't really unusual. So because of her concerning behavior, a Glencoe public safety director reached an agreement with Norman Wasserman in October that Laurie stop seeking out new babysitting positions, but they were okay with her remaining in the households of the children that she was watching at that point in time, which to me is a little odd.
Yeah.
So on November 7th, 1987, she returned to this gun shop, and now she's purchasing a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson. And then on December 29th, she purchased a third gun, a semi-automatic Beretta. This is someone that has a known history of mental illness, and she has just gone on to purchase 3 guns.
Yeah, the last person you'd want to be buying guns.
So, and not only that, her behavior is ramping up big time. So police believe that she then moved to Madison sometime between November of 1987 and January of 1988. She moved into the Towers. This is an off-campus student housing, and she's living among students that are at least 12 years her junior. Residents came about to naming Laurie the elevator woman. Some sources said the psycho elevator woman. She was known to just ride the elevator for extended periods of time, up and down, day and night. And I'm sure that made people very uneasy, you know, because you just don't know what she might be capable of.
Yeah. Anytime there's like some weird occurrence, like just listen to your gut. Like,
right.
You know, you get on an elevator, somebody's been there like for hours, you'll be like, okay, I'll take the next one. Thanks.
I'll take the stairs this time. So while she seemed to be gaining weight, some students believe that Laurie was bulimic or struggling with some sort of eating disorder. Most days she was seen wearing gray sweatpants. She had very greasy hair, and she was suspected of stealing from other students. After an appointment with a university psychiatrist, she was prescribed lithium carbonate for manic depression. She was also started on an experimental drug called clopidogrel to control her OCD. But then, once again, she stopped her visits in March. So on March 12th, Laurie was reportedly seen at a lab at the University of Wisconsin Hospital and Clinics building. And then 3 days later, a quantity of arsenic and lead were reported stolen. Mm-hmm. So 2 days later, Laurie was arrested on March 14th, and she was charged with shoplifting 4 wigs and 2 hair clips from JCPenney in Madison. And after she told officials that she was a University of Arizona student, she then gave her address for the home that she once shared with Russell. She listed her weight at 130 pounds, despite the fact that this was 33 pounds more than what her driver's license indicated. So as May of 1988 rolled around, more threatening phone calls came through, including a call back to her Tucson ex-boyfriend. And this came through on May 9th, and she threatened to stab him as well as his children.
Jeez.
And she used a voice that sounded like the Wicked Witch of the West. So very unsettling.
Yeah, it's like, man, if there's so many points where it could have been like, please, just like Baker Actor or something.
I know, it's really sad. It's a failure. So Arizona prosecutors, they were planning on indicting Laurie on May 18th. And gosh, I wish they would have, because Nick Corwin would still be here today, and so many other people would not be traumatized by what Laurie ends up doing. So she was going to be indicted for the stabbing threat because she was threatening to kill her ex-boyfriend and his family. But they wanted to gather all sorts of other things because they were hoping that they could have her held without bail. And they just didn't get all this information in time. So on May 15th, this is a time when the university was quiet because many students had gone home for the summer. And she was found by a staff member at the Towers on a 5th floor garbage room, curled up in a fetal position. She was dripping with sweat. She was in the corner of the room, and she had a plastic bag pulled over her head. I mean, it's like, why wasn't 911 called? Why wasn't she taken in, like you said, to be Baker acted?
Yeah.
Nothing happened there because police believe that she left Madison at 4 a.m. on May 16th. So 4 days later, it is now the day where this case began. It is Friday, May 20th, 1988, and Laurie left her home in Glencoe. She left in a luxury Toyota, and she was armed with 3 guns that she had purchased from marksmen, as well as packages of food that had been laced with arsenic, because remember, she was seen at that hospital, and then all of a sudden this arsenic went missing. So she delivered this poisoned food to 2 fraternities on Northwestern's campus, as well as to some of her babysitting clients, as well as other people that she was acquainted with. It seemed like she just picked them on random. And meanwhile, Russell and her psychiatrist later received packages of tainted juice in the mail. So at about 9 a.m., she stopped by the Winnetka home of Padraig and Marion Roosh. This is her former babysitting clients. And it seems like she was upset with them because they had called her the week before and they let her know, we are no longer going to need your services because we're relocating to New York. It wasn't even anything personal to her. So after she picked up two of their youngest children, rather than taking them to the fair like she promised, she drove to Ravinia Elementary School in Highland Park, and this is where her former sister-in-law, Susan Taylor's son, was enrolled. So after leaving the two boys that she had, her babysitting clients, in the car, she entered the school and she started a small fire in one of the corridors, but it was quickly extinguished by a teacher, and by this point in time, Laurie had already left that school. So from there, she drove to a Jewish daycare center where Susan's daughter attended, but when she tried to get into the building with a can of gasoline, thankfully she was stopped. But she did leave behind a Mickey Mouse cup that had been laced with poison.
Jeez.
So Laurie then drove the two children back to their home. This was at about 10:15 in the morning. She took them down to the basement, and when the mother was coming down to see what the hell was going on, Laurie had set the basement stairwell on fire, and she fled from the home.
Wow. Man, she wants to just burn kids.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So the mother and her two children were thankfully able to escape through the basement window. And it's ironic that she's targeting children because that's who she was connecting with.
Right.
It was adults that she just did not have any sort of connection with. So I find that strange that she would harm some, an age range of children that she was connecting with. So when firefighters extinguished the fire at the Rush home, Laurie was already on her way to Hubbard Woods Elementary School in Winnetka, where Susan's third child went to school, but had been away on a field trip that day. So once inside the school, she encountered a 6-year-old little boy in the hallway. This was just a little boy that happened to be in the hallway. This is Robert Trossman. And she pushed him into a nearby restroom and she shot him in the chest with her Beretta pistol. So after he was transferred to Evanston Hospital, he thankfully was able to recover. She attempted to shoot 2 additional boys with her Smith & Wesson revolver, but thank goodness the gun jammed. So they went off and ran for help, and she threw the weapon into the trash can along with spare ammunition for that gun. So Laurie then walked into a 2nd grade classroom at random, and here is where 24 children had been working in groups on a bicycle safety test, because we're talking about 2nd graders here.
Yep.
So armed with 2 handguns, she told the substitute teacher, 29-year-old Amy Moses, to gather all of the children into the corner, and Amy refused, and she tried to disarm Laurie, and this is when she pulled out a handgun and she opened fire. So according to Winnetka Police Chief Herbert Tim, had Amy followed her instructions, all of the children could have gotten shots.
Yeah, it's a hero. It's good instincts right away. It's like she just wants to collect them, to shoot them all,
right,
or whatever.
Exactly. She wanted them all condensed in the classroom. So tragically, 5 of the children were struck, and while 4 were still alive but wounded, 8-year-old Nick Corwin sadly died from a single shot to the heart after he was taken to nearby Highland Park Hospital.
Poor little buddy.
So sad. So the other 4 children were taken to Evanston Hospital in critical condition, each with a single gunshot to their body. 8-year-old Lindsay Clark Fisher had arrived with such little blood that the doctors immediately performed a relatively rare blood transfusion that went in directly to her heart.
Wow.
I had never even heard of that. 7-year-old Catherine Miller and 8-year-old Mark Taborek, Robert Trossman, they were admitted to the ICU following their surgeries. Meanwhile, 8-year-old Peter Monroe was reported to be in serious but stable condition at Highland Park Hospital. So after Laurie fled from the school in her car, she noticed that police were en route to the school. So she suddenly changed her direction, but then she wasn't able to leave that way either because roads were closed for a funeral procession. So she's now attempting to drive in reverse down a nearby street, and this is when she crashed into a tree after she took a corner too quickly. So she's abandoning her wrecked car, and she removed her blood-stained shorts, and she tied a blue garbage bag around her waist. And with her 2 remaining handguns, she walked through the nearby woods. And this happened at about 11 a.m. She suddenly comes upon a random home. She had never seen this home before. This is where the Andrew family lived at 2 Kent Road. So when she left herself inside, she came upon 20-year-old Phil Andrew, and he was actually home for the first day from summer break from the University of Illinois. And there at that school, he was a member of the swim team. And he is just sitting at his kitchen table with his mom. They're probably catching up because she's so happy that her son's home from college.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, this strange woman just bursts through their door holding a gun in each hand.
Like a garbage bag wrapped around her.
Yes.
Probably looking insane, I'm sure.
They said specifically that she had this wild look in her eyes. So while she's holding a gun in each hand, Laurie is telling them that she had been raped by a man in her car and that she'd shot him. And she claimed that because the police hadn't realized that she had done so in self-defense, they were after her. So they're completely unaware of this shooting that happened at nearby Hubbard Woods Elementary.
Sure.
So Phil is trying to help this woman.
Of course.
And he's reassuring her, oh, don't worry, the police will understand once they get to the bottom of the story. And he was assuming that she was refusing to hand over the guns because she was so traumatized from this alleged sexual attack.
What a hard situation to be in, because if a woman came in and said the same thing in this house, it'd probably be very similar. It'd be like, yeah, it'll be okay, don't worry. And I would understand holding, but at the same time, you're worried about your family. You're like, okay, you guys go in the other room. We'll be here together. Mm-hmm. Oh, scary.
So Mrs. Andrew gave Laurie a pair of their daughter's pants to wear. And while she was putting them on, Phil was able to take one of the guns, the Beretta. And at his suggestion, Laurie spoke with her mom on the phone, and she told her that she had done something terrible and that the police were involved. So when Phil took the phone from her, he talked to Edith, and he explained that, this alleged rape happened. He said, can you please come here and pick your daughter up? And she just said, I can't. I don't have a car.
Okay.
So when Mr. Andrew came home, they all tried to encourage Laurie to please give up her remaining gun. And when Laurie called her mom now a second time, and he is trying to ask Edith, please have your daughter give us this gun, he indicated that Edith seemed very disinterested before she remarked that she hoped her daughter would get home safely. And then she hung up the phone.
Well, hope she gets home. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
What?
Ugh.
So it was during the second phone call, 90 minutes after Laurie had come into the Andrews home, uninvited, when she allowed Phil's parents to leave unharmed. So they ran out of the house yelling, we need help. There is a woman in our house that has a gun. Phil is now trying to get this gun, this one remaining gun, away from Laurie. And this is when now he got shot in the chest.
Of course.
So he managed to make it out the back door before he collapsed. And thankfully, he was rescued by paramedics. He was taken to Highland Park Hospital. And thankfully, he also survived his injuries. So now left alone inside this Andrews home, and I'm talking, this is a big house. I looked it up. I don't know if there were any renovations done. It's at least $5.5 million. It's expansive. So Laurie is walling herself inside of this house, and she's maintaining a standoff with police for hours because she came upon this house at 11 in the morning. So during negotiations, her parents, as well as Russell, were brought in an effort for her to surrender.
And what time is it now? I missed that.
It all ends at around 7 p.m.
Okay.
So instead, she went into an upstairs bedroom. She placed her .32 revolver in her mouth, and she pulled the trigger. And this is where the assault team found her body at about 7 p.m. And when they entered the house, they didn't know that she'd be deceased because maybe there's good insulation in this house. They could not hear that gunshot go off. So she was wearing a University of Arizona Medical School t-shirt, and it was imprinted with a skeleton that was posed as the thinker. So the school shooting at Hubbard Woods Elementary was one of the first to be featured for weeks in the 24-hour news cycle in the wake of her rampage and her death. And there were so many questions as to how a woman with such an extensive history of mental illness had been able to go on and legally purchase 3 guns.
Yeah, bad news.
Terrible. So the coverage of this case was so wide and extensive that this, whole debacle is sometimes referred to as the first school shooting. So tragically, what seemed unthinkable back in 1988 has sadly become commonplace today, with a school shooting now occurring every single week in America.
Gee, that sucks, man.
I read that multiple times because I'm like, surely I cannot be reading this right.
That's insane. Like, oh man. I don't know.
As of December 13th, 2025, there had been at least 75 shootings in the United States in 2025. 43 were on college campuses, while 32 happened in K through 12 schools. One happened, I'm not sure what year, several years ago, on our college campus, Northern Illinois University. It's terrifying that you think when you send your children to school, they're going to be safe. And that's just simply not the case.
And now, if you're not from America, you probably don't know that our children are trained in safety drills for active shooters. Mm-hmm. So now they train, code red, and they all get into a corner in their rooms, and the teacher locks the door and covers it in case there's a shooter out there. So now they're all trained, just like fire drills and tornado drills and all those sort of things. Kids in America are trained for active shooters.
Yeah, it's
sad, but
so scary.
Also good in case it does happen. So I mean, we have to do it, but it's sad that we have to do it.
So in these instances I was talking about, at least 31 people died because of it, and more than 100 were injured, and that was in 2025.
Just through the year.
Yes. So according to the Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund, each year more than 4,300 children and teens are shot and killed, with more than 17,000 are shot and wounded. An estimated 3 million children in the United States are exposed to shooting each year, and firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So during Laurie Dann's rampage, in addition to killing 8-year-old Nick Corwin, she shot 7 others and attempted to shoot 2 other children before her gun jammed. Each of the 7 others who recovered, and, of course, their families, they also received extensive support to help them cope, because it wasn't just their wounds. They were traumatized by what happened that day. More than 1,000 mourners crowded a synagogue in Northfield for Nick Corwin's funeral, which was held later that May. And Nick had been born on April 9th, 1980 to parents Joel and Linda Corwin in Chicago. He was said to be an athlete who was known for his sportsmanship and his abilities.
About our age then.
Yeah, he was just a little bit older than us. So many parents within the community began to devote years of their lives to campaigning for gun control policy. Phil Andrews himself, this is the 20-year-old who was shot from, he's on summer break from the University of Illinois. He gave interviews about gun control from his hospital bed, and he later became active in local and state gun control organizations as the executive director of the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence. And when he was shot at 20 years old, his goals at that point in time, he just wanted to be the best swimmer that he could be at his university. But when he recovered, he went on to have a successful career within the FBI.
Wow.
So this whole trauma just changed the trajectory. That's the word I was trying to come up with, of what he wanted to do with his life.
Pretty incredible.
So sadly, what happened in May of 1988 in the peaceful community of Winnetka was a foreshadowing of things to come, as school shootings have tragically become commonplace. Of course, I'm speaking on the United States. So Phil Andrew is frustrated that elected officials continue to do relatively nothing to take significant steps in preventing school shootings by keeping guns out of the hands of people like Laurie, people that are struggling with their mental health, people who have a history of violent behavior. Laurie is no doubt the person who walked into Russell Dann's apartment and nearly killed him by stabbing him in the chest with an ice pick. And she was calling people. She was threatening them. She was just having this alarming behavior, and nothing was being done about it. So Phil's focus is very practical about things that, doing a universal background check that identify red flags that take guns away from dangerous people. He's not suggesting that no one has a gun. He's suggesting that people with a history of violent behavior or mental illness not legally get their hands on guns.
I don't think that's too crazy.
So after Laurie's rampage, her family, who were distraught over this tragedy, were unwilling to talk to reporters. Meanwhile, Russell Dann made a short appearance on national television, and then he quickly disappeared from the public eye. I think he just wanted to disconnect himself. So Laurie's psychiatrist was cooperative with investigators and indicated that she had never made any mention of thoughts of violence. But of course, we know that she would go and see her psychiatrist for blips at a time. She'd go, she'd get her prescription, and then she'd peace out.
Right.
So Laurie's parents were spending a lot of their time in Florida, and maybe they just weren't aware of the extent of how their daughter's mental health was going downhill in
or just closing their eyes to it, like putting blinders on, being like, oh, our life is perfect. Man, we don't have to think about our daughter.
Right. I mean, the fact that Edith was supposedly got this phone call and it's like, your daughter is in our house with guns. Well, I hope she gets home safe. Like, that's...
Maybe she had 5 or 6 martinis since it wasn't going to drive.
I don't know.
Who knows?
So Laurie left no suicide note behind. It's likely that she hadn't planned on killing herself that day, and she only did so when she found herself cornered. Today, we can just take a moment to remember the lives that were forever changed on May 20th, 1988 in Winnetka, Illinois. When this is 8-year-old Nick Corwin, he left the safety of his parents' home that Friday morning, and no one could have ever imagined that he wouldn't have come home safely like he always did every single day. Before Laurie's rampage, which could have ended in so many more lives lost, there had been a slew of warning signs that had accumulated over the years. She hadn't just come out of nowhere. Her behavior had raised alarms, and her instability was noticed. But sadly, time and time again, responsibility was just passed along, it was minimized, or it was just blatantly ignored until it was too late. So for the families affected, especially the children who survived that day, who were in that classmate room and watched their 8-year-old classmate die, I mean, how do you recover from that?
Never be the same.
Their trauma didn't just end when police arrived. It followed them into adulthood, into their memories and nightmares, and into a life that was forever divided by before and after. Because your sense of safety changes after something like that happens. You no longer just take things for granted. So you think any situation can become violent. Yep. If you're sitting in a classroom, a second grade classroom in 1988, and suddenly your classmate is shot and killed, and 5 of your other classmates are shot, your sense of safety dissolves. It's gone.
And some lady holding 2 guns and acting erratically.
Yes. So these were real people whose lives were forever changed, and the safety that they may have previously taken for granted, it was stolen. It was gone. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help by calling or texting the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by simply calling or texting 988, and help is available 24/7. And that is the sad story of the rampage of Laurie Dann and the murder of Nick Corwin.
I got a bunch of stuff to say. So number one, 988 isn't just for suicide, huh? It's for crisis. So anybody like mental health, you can call them, it sounds like, and get some help and at least give you some resources and things. And that's very helpful. But another thing, stories like these, we talk about Nick Corwin, poor kid, terrible, horrible. So sorry for his family, but all those other kids too. The freaking kid that got shot in the chest in a bathroom or whatever.
And then the 2 that nearly lost their lives, she pointed the gun at them and then it jammed.
Yeah, that's trauma. That's instant trauma, lifelong. It's going to be with them forever. And all those kids in that classroom that had a crazy lady with guns come in and want to shoot them all and then killed one of their classmates. That's going to stick with all of them. They're going to have PTSD forever. These are the things we kind of gloss over. When they have a news bulletin, they're like, oh, and several people were injured, but nobody died. It's
that's not the point. The trauma that's associated, we just assume, well, the wound is healed, so you're healed. You're fine.
Right.
You're okay.
And that's not the case.
It doesn't end there. I mean, look at Phil Andrew. He was 20 years old at that time. He was focusing on a swimming career and he was going to college. Now he went on to have a job with the FBI, and he was a huge advocate for gun control. So his life changed after that moment.
Yeah, he took it and tried to spin it into something good. What a strong young man he was and is now and all that. And then the other thing, gun control, right? So we're in the United States. For those of you outside the U.S., it's in our Constitution. It's something that we have the right to bear arms. So I think in America, we'll always have the right to have guns, it seems like, right? But at the same time, I think we all can agree that people that are mentally unstable should not have access to any gun ever. And if you don't agree with that, before you start talking, you can go to hell and never listen to us again. If you think that everybody should just have guns all the time, I think there's maybe a minute portion of the population, and they're probably not even listening to this, because I think we have some very just smart and good people listening to us.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people everybody should have guns always, go to hell, then never listen to us again.
I can't imagine, and that's what I was going to say when I was trying to rudely interrupt you, was I can't imagine that anyone would argue with that. I mean, Laurie was blatantly spiraling out of control. She should have never, and honestly, her parents knew that she had gone and gotten a gun. I mean, she should have never had access to guns.
I mean, Laurie's parents suck ass. Just step up to the plate. Right? If you would have stepped up to the plate and given her some help, I get that in the 80s it was hard, right? It was hard. Maybe people sweep things under the rug, whatever it is. But there were so many signs, and you guys just closed your eyes to it all. And now kids are dead. One kid's dead, and several people are injured and affected forever because you didn't want to open your eyes to the possibility.
Yeah, it's hard to face challenges sometimes, but you can't bury your head in the sand and just expect that things are going to go away, because they're not.
Right. And there's so many opportunities. A lot of times with the man that does this, it's okay, they snap and they just go on a rampage. She had, so much, but with that rancid meat and the urination and just all those it was years of stuff.
Well, I mean, she was curled up in the fetal position about a week before this happened in the garbage room of the University of Madison, and she had a plastic bag over her head.
Ice pick stabbing her ex-husband, that was just swept under the rug. And we forget about that. There's all of these signs. It almost seemed like none of it happened. And here in the U.S., all the politicians do their best to divide everybody. But I think we all feel, for the most part, 90%, 95% of Americans all agree there should be background checks, and people with any sort of bad mental health history should not have access to guns, because that's just a good idea in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is that politicians they're trying to take away your guns. They're going to take them. It's not the case, right? So I don't know. I think
we covered that one case, the Lost Boys of Bucks County in Pennsylvania, where 4 boys lost their lives. And it was a kid that had a gun, and he had major mental health issues.
Yeah.
And it's why did he have access to a gun?
And then there's another case of should people be able to get a gun the same day? It's probably not. If you failed to plan on your hunting trip and you didn't get a gun ahead of time, maybe you got to wait a couple weeks, go on the next hunting thing. I don't know. Or I guess if you're fearful for your life and somebody's threatening your family, you want access to a gun quickly.
And I understand that.
I get that. Maybe there should be a special registration through your police department or something. We can figure it out. We're Americans. We're enterprising. That's what I always say when people are I don't go to the self-checkout lanes because it takes away jobs. I'm we'll figure it out. We'll figure out more jobs. It's easier for me. I don't have to ask, hey, did you find everything all right? Oh, okay. It's I'm just going to scan and get the hell out. So I don't know. I think we're enterprising Americans. We figured out a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but just a very, very sad case. And I always want to make sure we remember at the heart of what the story we're telling is that real human beings were affected by this case. And Nick Corwin lost his life that day. I never want to gloss over that we're just reading this fictional story, because we're not. This happened to people.
Yep.
People's lives were forever changed after this day. Poor Nick Corwin's, parents, their son never walked back into their lives again. And that is so heartbreaking. And we have 2 children that are in school. They're in, 11th grade and 8th grade. And sometimes we get alerts that they're in a lockdown, and it's terrifying.
Yep.
Terrifying. Every day that we let our kids leave this house to go to the school, there's a niggling sense of fear. Not every day for me, but there's certain moments when I might be folding laundry thinking oh, I hope they're doing okay there.
Because we have no idea, and we're in America, and there's school shootings all the time. You guys don't understand outside of America. There's school shootings that happen we have no idea about, because
did you see the statistic I read?
That
every week?
Yeah,
every week?
70 through the year.
75 over the course of 2025 as of December 13th statistic.
They used to make the news all the time, and now they don't, because it's so commonplace.
We're numb to it.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Just terrible.
Take care of each other out there. But it's all we have is each other, right? So if you see any history, you have any mental illness issues, you're worried about things, somebody in your family, call 988, please.
Please, yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening. We truly do appreciate every single one of you for coming on over, checking us out, maybe liking us, subscribing to us, heading over to YouTube.
I check you out and like you all the time.
Thank you, Mike. I like you too.
If you love Allison's meticulous research, we have every Wednesday we come out with bonus episodes over on Patreon or Apple subscribers. Go check it out. There's like hundreds of episodes and you can listen to your heart's content.
Yeah, if you're doing a project or you're going on a long drive and you just want to binge, that's when I listen to constant podcasts when I just repainted our laundry room. And literally for probably 5 hours, I was listening to our fellow husband and wife true crime podcasts and just binging.
There's a lot of good ones out there.
Yeah.
Go give them a shot.
So anyway, you guys take care of each other, love one another, be safe. And until next time, bye.